And what really set Silicon Valley aside, you would say, from the Netherlands or Finland or Sweden in that way?
Yeah, now I have to be super careful. So things have changed recently. I've noticed that there's been quite an exodus from Silicon Valley over the last years.
Yes.
But when I was there, one of the things that I noticed, it was such a gravitational pull for very intelligent, capable, driven, and motivated people. And for the first time in my life, I never had to say or explain something again. So people were so smart that whenever you came up with something, they would get it right away. That's one thing. And I must admit, and that is not always true in other places that I've worked. Not in Sweden, in other places. Let me be clear on that.
Not in Sweden, of course.
Yeah, and then there is, of course, also a lot of drive. People spend a lot of time. That's also how the whole thing is organized. You basically work a lot all the time. Yeah. The rule is work hard, play hard, but it's more work hard and a lot less play hard. So that I really enjoyed. And then, a lot of high-end tech companies are there, right? They organize all kinds of events and mingling. So anything from the Computer History Museum to events at Google or at Microsoft or at Apple and others where you can just show up and participate and meet great people that are doing really exciting things that a few years later, even when living here in Sweden, I see things happen that I basically met people that were discussing that at that time, which I think is fun.
But if we just look a bit broader and think, what is the reason for the success of, US or Silicon Valley specifically, and compare that perhaps, Canada, for example, had a lot of really awesome research, especially in AI and probably in computer science in general. And of course, China has that as well and others. But for some reason, it really worked out well for the US at that time. What would you say that the reason is? Is it the STEM education things, or what is really the reason for that happening?
The early days of Silicon Valley were, I think, bringing the techies from the shipbuilding and semiconductor building industry together with the creatives that were the hippies that moved to California because the weather was a lot better than in many other places in the US, right? And I think that when you meet tech-savvy people or bring together tech-savvy people and creative people, really beautiful things can happen, right? So that's one. Later on, in the startups that I work with, it is not so hard to get the early stages of investing, angel investing, first stage. But it's the scaling, putting in the big amounts of money required to make a small company that has traction with customers really scale and become number one in the industry. And that's something that the VCs in Silicon Valley have really solved. And to be honest, many European startups that could have been great were basically sold to American investors because American investors were willing to pay the multiples or the valuations that no European investor would touch with a 10-foot pole.